Hello my friends, it's Dani, and today I am back with the second video in our 10-week intuitive eating series. And this week we're going to be chatting all about honoring your hunger. Now, before I jump into it, I just want to mention that our first video was all about rejecting the diet mentality, and that really does set the foundation for the next 10 weeks. So if you did not get to watch that video, I'm going to link to it down in the description box below, and I do highly recommend that you take a peek at it. So what is hunger? Hunger is defined as a natural biological cue that lets your body know when it needs sustenance, right? So it lets your body know, hey, we need some nourishment, we need some energy, we need some fuel. Keeping your body biologically fed with carbohydrates, proteins, and healthy fats are what help to keep our bodies nourished, and this is essential to our life, as is breathing. When we do not honor our biological signs of hunger, we can trigger a primal drive to overeat, right? So when you get to that place of excessive hunger, or as some of us might know it, hangry, all of our intentions of moderate conscious eating are a lot less likely to happen. So learning to honor early signs of biological hunger are a really important piece of learning to rebuild trust with your body and your food, and ultimately with yourself. When you think of biological hunger, think of it as a sensation that starts in your body and then travels up to the brain. So it's the same as experiencing a sensation of something that's hot, right? You touch something that's hot, there's a sensation in the body, that information travels to the brain says, hey, move your hand. It is the same with biological hunger. It starts with a sensation somewhere in the body, and then that will travel up to the brain and tell the brain, hey, we need some food. And then the brain will signal you to get to eating. Now, on the flip side is more of an emotional hunger, right? An emotional hunger usually starts in the brain and then travels down to the body. So it starts with a thought, whether that thought is conscious or unconscious, right? So for example, pretend you just ate a nice big lunch and you are fueled and satiated and satisfied. And then you walk into your favorite bakery and you see like a delicious brownie and you think to yourself, OMG, that looks so good. And then all of a sudden you feel like, I could eat a little something, right? That would be an example of feeling some hunger in your body that's really being triggered by a thought in your mind. So part of the practice of getting in touch with our hunger is going to be learning to decipher between a sensation of hunger in the body and a thought of hunger that starts in the mind. So this is really a practice that does require a lot of self-awareness, right? It requires us taking the time to notice. What does a sensation of hunger feel like in your body? I mean, is that something that you're even clear about right now? Or is that something that you just have to start practicing and noticing? Do you feel hunger in your stomach? Does it feel empty? Or maybe it's a little bit rumbly. Some people feel hunger in their throat. They say it can feel like a little bit of a gnawing feeling, or like an aching feeling. Other people notice it in like their brains, right? You get a little foggy, or you feel like you can't really focus or concentrate. What is your mood like? What is your energy level like? These are all places you can start to notice and try to pick up the subtle cues of early signs of biological hunger. In the intuitive eating book, they actually suggest learning to tune into all different types of sensations in the body, right? So when you're stressed, what exactly does that feel like in your body? Where is that in your body? If you're sleepy, what does that feel like in your body? Can you describe it? Like, where in your body do you actually feel it? And what does that feel like? If you have to go to the restroom, what's the sensation that you're experiencing there, right? So learning to tap into all these different types of sensations, not just hunger, it's kind of like a cross training as you practice to become more in tune with the body. And I, of course, just want to reiterate the word practice, right? This is a practice. You cannot do it right or wrong. It's just all information that we're learning to be in better communication with. Now, you also want to be aware of things that can interfere with your natural hunger cues. So things like thoughts, beliefs, distractions, and or a lack of self-care. So for example, if you're in between meals and you're feeling biologically hungry, but you have a rule that you're not allowed to snack in between meals, then you're going to interfere with your relationship to your biological hunger, right? And this is something that dieters really like to do because we're very accustomed to going to our mind for the information. And this practice of tuning into our body is not information that we get from our mind, right? This is something that we're going to get by listening to our bodies. So it's kind of like like a dropping into. So not only do we want to get good and keep practicing recognizing the sensations in our body, right? The sensations of biological hunger, but we also want to start to really notice when we are having thoughts or ideas or beliefs that are interrupting our ability to honor those natural cues. Self-care is another really important piece to this puzzle, right? Because what we do for pleasure, play, relaxation, all of these things are going to affect our ability to tune into our body and get in touch with those hunger cues and those subtle sensations in the body. Are you meeting your basic needs, and do you know how to manage stress in your life, right? These are all really important pieces to the puzzle. It can be very difficult to hear your body's hunger cues if you are living a very stressful, chaotic, demanding life, right? So whether you are chasing deadlines or running after toddlers, this can set off your body's fight or flight response. And then what will happen is your body will shut off blood flow to the digestive system and start shunting that out to your extremities. And this will absolutely reduce the sensation of hunger cues in the body. So adequate self-care really is a critical piece to setting the foundation of intuitive eating. Making sure that you are attending to your basic physical and emotional needs is something that should be a priority. And I know for a lot of people, especially for women, we think that keeping ourselves at the top of the list is somehow selfish, but I promise you, good, high-quality self-care is not selfish. It's actually a complete necessity for you to put you first so that you can show up in the world and give the best of what you got, right? So if there's any part of your brain that argues with you and thinks this is selfish, I'd love for you to take some time and really work on redefining that for yourself. Now, in the Intuitive Eating Workbook, if you guys happen to grab a copy of that, they have a really interesting self-care assessment in the book, which I found to be both eye-opening and kind of fun to do. So I do recommend checking that out if you have the book. I will, of course, link to it down in the description box below if it's something you're interested in. Now, as you get to know your hunger a little better, not only are you going to get good at recognizing when you have the biological signs of hunger in your body, but you're also going to get good at recognizing when you've had enough, right? So how much food do you need to feel satiated and fueled and energized? Now, there's a tool in the Intuitive Eating Workbook and in the regular book called the Hunger Scale, right? And a lot of health, wellness, and weight loss coaches use this in their private practices as well, as do I, right? So the idea is, and they all vary a little bit. The one I like to use has a 0 right in the middle, right? And that 0 represents completely neutral, not hungry, not full. And then that scale moves up to a +5 and down to a -5. As you move up the scale, you first start to recognize subtle signs of hunger. Then, I've got a good appetite and I'm really looking forward to a meal. Then, I'm getting hangry, all the way up to you are painfully and uncomfortably hungry. And then it does the same on the reverse as you move down the scale. It's a really great tool to use as you're practicing this because it's just another way to bring your awareness and your mindfulness to the practice of tuning in to your body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a link down in the description box below. If you guys want a copy of my hunger scale, all you have to do is click that link. You'll be prompted to enter your email and it will be emailed directly to you. Now, if your name is already on my newsletter list, then you're going to be getting that hunger scale in your inbox on Friday. So stay tuned. And also, if you have the Intuitive Eating book or workbook, they also have their own version of the hunger scale in there. So make sure you check that out as well if you want something that you can actually use to help you with this practice. But what I really want you guys to remember is that our appetites are our friends, right? Being hungry and eating food, this is all designed to be an extremely enjoyable, pleasurable experience. When you think about having an emerging hunger coming on, right? So your appetite is building and then you're looking forward to your meal. And then you sit down and you eat a delicious meal to the point of being energized and satisfied, right? That whole experience is a lovely experience. And I really want you to reconnect with the idea that like appetite and hunger and food and fuel, these are all positive things. A lot of times in the dieting world, we want to diminish all of that. We want to diminish our appetites. We want to diminish our hunger. We want to make food the enemy. And that is just not the case, right? So we want to cease fire in the mind a little and get back to that enjoyable, pleasurable space with our meals. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on before I wrap this one up is I know in the last video there were some comments about not feeling biological signs of hunger, right? So some of you were saying that, hey, what if I were to tune into my body and eat when it told me I was hungry? I would never eat because I never ever feel like I'm hungry. And I'm really happy that we got those questions, because in the intuitive eating book, they also address this. And what they talk about doing is creating for yourself a 911 nourishment plan. And the idea here is that if you know that you don't really ever feel these sensations, then you create a little agenda for yourself. Maybe you say, I'm gonna eat breakfast at 9, my lunch is at 1, and dinner is at 6. And these are some of the foods that I know nourish me and that I enjoy. And you kind of just schedule it in, right? So you're mentally thinking about it and creating a plan for yourself ahead of time, so you don't have to depend on those signals if you are one of those people who feel like you really just never experience those signals, right? So it's a great way to continue to take really good care of yourself, make sure that you're not being neglected, and just put a plan in place ahead of time. I know for many of us, especially those of us who have dieted in the past, getting back in touch with the natural biological signs of hunger can feel a little bit tricky at the beginning. It can even be a little bit confusing. But I want you to remember that this is a practice. It's just like if I said to you, hey, we're gonna learn how to play the guitar, right? You wouldn't expect to pick up the guitar and learn how to do it in an hour. These things take time and patience and a little bit of trial and error, but it's well worth it, especially if you want to create a very peaceful, natural relationship with food. Think of a sensation of hunger in your body the same as if you had to use the restroom, right? If you had to use the restroom, even if it was at a very inconvenient time, you would get up and you would use the restroom, and you wouldn't feel guilty about it, and you wouldn't be ashamed about it, right? You would just do what you need to do to take care of your body. I want you to start thinking of your natural signs of hunger like that as well. I know some of you have like weird work schedules, or maybe you work overnights, or you have certain shifts, but you can always keep little things like a pack of almonds, small little snacks that you could just keep in your pocket, right? So that if you are really at the beginning stages of learning how to do this, you can stay in integrity with the practice. So that is the wrap up of week 2. We are honoring our hunger signals. If you guys want something to work on this week, I would recommend keeping a bit of a hunger journal for yourself, right? So instead of keeping a food journal, we're keeping a hunger journal, which means you would write down what time you eat, and then you would write down how hungry you are when you start and how hungry you are when you stop. Using the hunger scale for this would be a great idea, right? And then put any other notes that you have. Again, writing it down is just a very helpful way to kind of slow down and stay mindful and be aware of the whole process. So as always, I would love to hear all of your thoughts, questions, ideas, aha moments down below. Please come down to the comment section and share. Let's all support each other and create a great space to really work through all of this information together. And I'm super excited to meet you back here next Tuesday around the same time-ish, noon-ish. We'll be heading into the 3rd week of this intuitive eating series, where we'll be talking about making peace with food, a really juicy topic. So of course, if you know anybody who could benefit from this video series, please do share it with them, and we'll all do our part so that everybody can have a healthy, kind, loving relationship with food and body. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Dani Spies, and I'll see you back here next time with some more food for thought. Cheers. And try to pick up the subtle cues, and try to pick up the subtle cues. And try to pick up the subtle cues when it needs sustenance, right?
Sustenance.
I said sustenance, B.
You're saying sustenance.
How do you say it?
Sustenance.
Sustenance.
Just say the word sustenance. Let your body know when you need sustenance.
Okay. That lets your body know when it needs sustenance.
Sustenance.
Sustenance. That lets your body know when it needs sustenance.